talk some NFL. Let's talk some football. So, Andy, we're about a couple weeks away from training camp. So, obviously, here in Brandon's world, we talk football all season long, from September to February. Then we go into, free agency. Then we go into the draft. Then we go into the schedule. So, this is really only the 6 week downtime in the NFL calendar all year long.
Right.
And I take my break from the podcast in August. We come back in September because I'll be honest, I can't stand talking about preseason football. It's mind numbing to watch.
Yep.
Trying to get excited about something that I shouldn't get excited about. Preseason only worries me when it comes to injuries and what vanilla defense, to my point.
Right.
So it's really prediction season. It's looking at ed season, and you can say whatever you want because it's July. We're not pigeonholed into our opinions until September. But I ask every guest that I have this time of year, I ask them to give me a couple of teams that they think could surprise people, both good and bad. So, some teams that are maybe a little bit under the radar that you think are going to be better, and then some teams that people are way high on that you think are not going to be as good.
So I think the Falcons have a chance to come out and really shock everybody. I think the two pieces that were holding them back were Desmond Ritter and Arthur Smith. And now you get rid of Arthur Smith and you bring in a guy who's on an average team winning you 8 games, Kirk Cousins. Um, you already have weapons. You have Bijan, who was never used correctly last year. You have Kyle Pitts and you have Drake London. So, you know, I think the Falcons could come out and shock people and really fight for the South, because they're NFC South, right?
Yeah, and they should be I think they are the favorites to win that division over Tampa.
Okay, okay. So my take's not all that crazy, but I think the Falcons will put up a great season, probably winning 8 to 9 games, maybe 10.
I got
Um,
them between 9 and 10 fighting with Tampa for the division.
okay, yeah, I think that's a good prediction. Um, I think a team that it depends on one guy, and his name is Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson is not Russell Wilson, the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning 6 games. If Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson, the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning 9 to 10 games. So I mean, now they have Arthur Smith, right, running their offense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you hire him after you saw what he did last year,
Well,
especially
so we know two things about Pittsburgh. We know that Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, and I think that
right.
that changes this year. Um, I said when it comes to Pittsburgh, I don't really want to bet them because, you know, when I say they're going to have a losing season, they're probably going to end up winning 9 or 10 games, like you said. But that back half of the schedule, they have all their division games in the back half. It's unbelievable. Then they got to play Philadelphia and Pittsburgh or Kansas City on top of it. It's a brutal schedule the last 8 games. And the other thing that we know about the Steelers is, and you know how I feel about defensive coaches. They are so, steadfast and we can win with defense and run the ball and don't turn the ball over. Pittsburgh hasn't had a good offensive line in half a decade. I mean, Andy Reid, and again, Kansas City, yes, they have Patrick Mahomes and Charles Coach, these guys, I get it. But nobody remembers they got destroyed by Tampa in the Super Bowl, the COVID Super Bowl, Brady's last Super Bowl.
Hmm.
They refixed the entire offensive line in a year. It's taken Pittsburgh and Buffalo 6 years, and they still don't have a great one.
Right. Yeah. I think oh, I don't want to say this, but Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to be fighting for third place,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
no, I agree with you. We were talking before the show on the air. We both agree on the Browns. Cleveland fans are angry at me. Our goal should be to win the division. We won 11 games last year with Joe Flacco. Yeah. And guess what? You got a break because Joe Burrow was hurt out the year for Cincinnati when they were about to go on their run. And I'm sorry. You give me Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the receiver they drafted out of Alabama. If Burrow's healthy, I dare I say I like Cincinnati more than Baltimore. I just think if Joe Burrow's healthy, that's an AFC championship team.
Definitely. I mean, they already did it once,
Yeah.
right? And that was his second year. No,
So it was his first full year. It was his second
yeah,
year. That was after he tore his ACL. Now I like Houston as well, but my thing with Houston is that division got a lot better. Now they got better too. They added Joe Mixon. They added Stephon Diggs. They should win that AFC South. A lot of people like them to be the number one contender to Kansas City in the conference, but I just don't know. I'm not ready to sell my Jacksonville stock. I think that Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence now have a lot to prove. I think a lot of it had to do with his injury at the end of the year. And we don't know what Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson could be because that kid's got real potential.
I think Indy, Houston are fighting for 1 and 2. I don't think the Jags even come close to sniffing the division.
Wow. Okay.
Honestly, I mean, we've given Trevor what 3 years now to prove something, and he hasn't done it. So we
Well,
know Doug Peterson's a great coach, but I mean, they have less
I'll say
weapons this
this.
year.
This will be year three now under Doug. Because I'm going to throw year one completely out. The Urban thing
Sure,
was a disaster.
sure.
So year one, they start off slow as you would expect. They get better. They have that come from behind game against Brandon Staley, who this side of Freddie Kitchens is the worst head coach in the NFL. They did push Kansas City to the brink in that divisional round game. And last year they did start 8-3 until they fell apart. And Trevor was very good until he got that injury. So, and I don't know. It seemed like the connection with Calvin Ridley was not great. Maybe with Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, they bring in Gabe Davis. Maybe he gets back on track.
I just don't think they have the weapons, right? I mean, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Gabe Davis aren't guys that get me excited.
No,
Um,
but I again in Doug Peterson's history, he did this in Philadelphia. Remember when Wentz won the division when we were throwing to tight ends and running backs when
yeah,
our number one receiver was JJ Arcega-Whiteside? I mean, talk about how far we've come in the last few years. I want to stay at the AFC South for a second because I've had a lot of
but
interviews over the last couple of weeks. I've got mixed opinions on Tennessee. I feel like they're going to be garbage. People are telling me though, and I get where they're coming from, right? They did bring in Calvin Ridley. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They brought in Tony Power. They have an offensive coach. They just signed Jamal Adams today. They have what Jarius Sneed from Kansas City. On paper, you look at that roster and you're like, they're not as bad as what we think. But I think they're going to be like a Commanders team last year, where we look at them, we go, "Oh, they got talent. They just got a quarterback that can't play."
I'm again, it's all just it all rides on Will Levis, right?
I mean, I
That's
I I watched Will Levis in college. I wasn't a fan. Um,
yeah. I
wasn't
didn't watch him enough. I don't know. I mean, he had some great games last year. If I'm not mistaken, his first game that he played, he was absolutely lights out.
A lot of it though was in garbage time. They were trailing, and again, in his defense, he didn't have any receivers last year. And I did sort of defend Tennessee firing Vrabel because they just looked like a shell of themselves. And I do like Callahan. I think an offensive coach. Again, you're going to give Will Levis a year, and we'll see how they do. But they're in a weird spot where it's like they could be okay. They could also be awful.
Right. I think they have a lot of talent now. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a non-factor. I don't think you need to include him in that conversation with the receivers. I don't know. He's too old to me,
By
but
the way, they brought in Boyd from Cincinnati, so they have
right.
two.
Well,
I
I
forgot
mean,
about that.
having Tony Pollard under center with you, on the right hip of Will Levis, that's a massive advantage. I mean, Tony Pollard was fantastic in Dallas, and I think that's a huge upgrade there. Um, well, I guess maybe not an upgrade because it was Derrick Henry, right? But
Yeah, but Henry's not really a pass catcher, and to me, even though Baltimore got him, I think he's a good fit there. I think he did show some signs of age.
definitely, I think the Titans. Last year, I was a known Commanders hater. I live in the DC area, and I'm not a fan of the Washington Commanders. I said at the beginning of the season, I think their line I gave them was 4.5, and what they hit the under. Um, I think they went what 4 and
4 and
13
13.
left.
Yeah, I gave him 6 because I gave Bieniemy, who was the OC at the time, the benefit of the doubt. But
Yeah,
I thought that they were going to move on from Sam Howell, which obviously they did.
I'm excited for Jaden Daniels, by the way.
You know what? Let's talk NFC East because I think my Philadelphia Eagles are going to have a bounce back year this year.
Yep.
I've been doing this for every single podcast. If you're watching on video, we had a guy last year who was coaching my defense with a pencil behind his ear, and completely messed up the chemistry. And I don't know. Apparently, Sean Desai lost confidence, and they bring in Coach Pencil, who hasn't done anything in his whole career. Whatever. I'm over it. The bottom line is this team as an upgrade to me in OC over Brian Johnson and Kellen Moore. Upgraded DC, obviously, and Vic Fangio. I love the addition of bringing back CJ Gardner Johnson at safety, and I don't put a lot of value in safety, but that man is a hard hitter. And I'm not the biggest running back guy. Like I've been telling people, Saquon Barkley, I like him. I think a lot of running backs are really dependent on their offensive lines. And I get there is concern out there that they did lose Jason Kelsey to retirement, but Eagles fans, only know this, and I don't want NFL fans around the country know this. I really do like Cam Urges, who Jason Kelsey personally elected Howie Roseman to draft. And I'm not saying he's going to be Jason Kelsey, but I don't think you're going to lose as much from the center position as a lot of people think.
Yeah, I think your Eagles are gonna win the division. Definitely, the only team that would give them any sort of trouble is Dallas.
See, I'll push back. I think number 2 is going to be Washington.
Number
I think
2,
Dallas is in for a 7-8 win year. They
really?
have done nothing to improve the team. Their only addition they made was Ezekiel Elliott, who's over the hill. They didn't draft a running back. They don't have any receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb. If he goes down, and by the way, he's due to get paid as well, and there's pressure on Dak, and their offensive line's not going to be as good. They lost Tyron Smith. If CeeDee Lamb goes down, they're a pop gun offense.
Yeah. I don't find it hard to put the Commanders in that number 2 spot. I don't know.
Upgraded head coach, upgraded offensive coordinator, upgraded quarterback.
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's the Commanders.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of rookies, I'm really high on the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, me too.
I have never seen. I'm not saying that they're going to take the division from Detroit because I think Detroit's really good. And the fact they brought back both coordinators to me is huge because I thought they would have regressed if Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn would have taken a head coaching job. But I think those guys are back to finish a job that they should have went to the Super Bowl last year. And Jared Goff is really comfortable in a dome with a great offensive line. But that Chicago team, from upgraded quarterback, number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver, running back, and they still have a top 10 defense. You can make an argument no team transformed overnight this year like the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fantastic. I'm high on Caleb. I think he has that swagger, and I think he's going to go out there and prove every boomer wrong that doesn't like him and his painted nails. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, we have a really nice new era of quarterbacks coming into the league here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I said Andy. I thought the only one out of all 6 of them that were drafted, and I'll even include Spencer Rattler in this because I think he got a bad rap, and I think he's better than Derek Carr. I personally would start him if I was the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be hot garbage this year. But nonetheless, I think the only one out of the first round quarterbacks that landed in a bad spot is, obviously Drake May in New England.
What about Knicks? Well, he was second
Denver, I
round,
think
wasn't
Bo
he?
Nix worse than Denver. I think he's the starter week 1. Denver's over under is only 5.5, and I don't get it.
Well, this is what we're going to find out this year: is was it the Denver coaching staff or was it Russ that was the reason for
Well,
their
Russ only averaged 120 yards a game or whatever it was last year. It couldn't be all him.
right? So it's either going to be the Steelers or the Broncos that are good. It can't be both, and it can't be neither, right? We know it has to be one of them.
See, I think they're going to be about the same record, 8-9
You think
wins.
so?
Well, Denver, I'll say probably 7 or 8 because I think the Chargers are going to be really good. I think if you're asking me right now, who is going to go from not a playoff team to a playoff team in the AFC, especially, I think it's Chargers and Bengals, number one, number two.
The only thing that worries me about the Chargers is the receiving core.
Yeah, I know, but Harbaugh has a history of
I
taking
think
guys.
Harbaugh is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So what? I'll throw two more NFL questions at you. Let's go to the AFC East. Mr. Ayahuasca. And I
Mhm.
take a deep breath because I want to believe in the Jets so bad. They made the upgrades at offensive line. They signed Mike Williams as a number 2 receiver to complement Garrett Wilson. Brees Hall should be back and better than ever running back. But and their defense is really good. And Buffalo has lost a lot of pieces. And Miami has lost a lot of pieces and can't play in the cold. This should be the Jets' year to win the division, but I did not like the fact that Aaron skipped mandatory minicamp, especially in his first full year coming off the ACL injury. I would have liked for him to be there, and I just think it's a bad look. And I don't know how good of a coach Robert Saleh is. And so I think the Jets to win the division is probably your best value out of all the division bets in the NFL if you're talking value. But I don't know. I'm starting to think points.
Yeah. The So a team that I can compare here to the Sixers is the Bills. I think of them on the same plane. Um, I'm tired of Josh Allen. I think he's fantastic, but there's no way someone can figure out how to lose that heartbreakingly year over year over year. You know, it's
See,
it's
I think it's less on Allen and more on coaching. Like I think if they were to replace McDermott with Dable, who was already on the staff, that's what I would have done after that game they lost to Kansas City, the crazy game that obviously forced them to change the overtime rules. Because
Mhm.
I did again, I think when you have an offensive coach, I think it matters.
Right. Um, yeah, I mean the Jets feel like good value. Who else is in that division? You have
And
Jets,
Miami and New England, the other two.
Miami. Yeah, New England's kind of just dead in the water, right? No one expects anything out of them. Um, Miami, they're going to be good. I think they're supposed to be good,
Yeah, I
definitely.
mean they
That's
should be a playoff team. They should be somewhere in that 10 to 12 win range. I think fighting with the Jets for the division.
over the Bills,
Yeah, I think Buffalo is about an 8 to a 9, not a 9 or a 10 win team. They
without
lost
Diggs
Diggs. They
and
lost
Davis.
Diggs. They lost a lot of people on the defensive side of the ball as well. They're just not going to be as explosive this year. It's not going to say they're not going to win games. They have Josh Allen. They're going to win games. It's not going to be as good as in years past.
You want to tell me your way too early division winners?
Um, Yeah, because I think even though I'll make my official predictions in September, but I think the audience generally knows where I'm thinking because you guys know it's a quarterback coach week.
Hmm.
And so right now I would go Jets, Chiefs, Cincinnati, Houston, Philly, San Fran, Detroit, Atlanta. And I think a couple of those could go either way. Jets, Miami, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Indy, Houston, if Indy gets their stuff together. Detroit, maybe Chicago pushes them a little bit. Maybe Tampa pushes Atlanta. I think the wild card race is going to be more fascinating than the division races.
I think I'd have to agree with all of those. I don't know. For some reason, I just can't not have Buffalo as the division winner, just because of recent history. I think I think the Chargers challenge the Chiefs this year.
Okay.
I mean, I the Chiefs are fantastic. Is Rasheed Rice playing? Do we know?
I don't
Is
know. And they've had a noisy offseason, and that concerns
very.
me. And so I hear that. The last point I was going to make, let's go to the NFC North again, because the one hot take I think I've had is, even though this team, they did make the divisional round of the playoffs, they seem to be in the up and up. I'm like, Is Green Bay really that good? When
No.
you look hard at that division, this is what I've been trying to explain to people when you look at their division. And the Browns are almost in a similar situation, ironically, to where it's like, do they have the best quarterback? No. Do they have the best weapons? No. Do they have the best offensive line? No. Do they have the best defense? No. Like to me, Green Bay's very good, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that Chicago was not very good. And by the way, I love Minnesota's weapons. I don't know how good Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy is going to do, but I love their weapons. They're going to win games. So I don't know. I'm not as high on Green Bay because I've never seen a flip of a switch like Jordan Love had, where his coach at Halloween last year said he couldn't play, then being arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league by year's end.
Yeah, he really turned it up last year. I think Love is going to be a I don't even know who his comp would be, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be anything. He's not going to be the next Aaron Rodgers, right? Which is obviously Green Bay's goal when they drafted him. I think he's going to be good. He definitely learned a lot from Aaron. Um, I don't know. I mean, they have what Christian Watson is.
Watson, Dobbs, and they was Aaron Jones for Josh
Mhm.
Jacobs, which I didn't get that move at all.
I like Jacobs. I think Jacobs is a fantastic running back,
I liked
but he's
him.
not a pass catcher,
No, and I
not as much
like
as
Aaron
Jones.
Jones a lot, who, by the way, went to Minnesota. And if Minnesota can get competent quarterback play, I think people are sleeping on him a little bit. Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Jones. I mean, they're saying McCarthy's not ready, which I kind of find hard to believe. I'm like, if that kid can't play with those weapons, he's not gonna be able to play.
Yeah, yeah. He has a 1 to 2 year window where if you can't get it done with weapons like that, then you have no place in the NFL. We'll
Top
see. I
five,
mean,
top five tight end of the week, arguably a top 15 receiver for your number 2 to go along with your number 1 receiver in the entire game. Plus a good offensive line. Their left tackle was like top 5 in the game.
right,
And they have, a top 10-inch running back.
right. We'll see. I don't know. I'm
So,
not big on McCarthy.
you know what? I said a lot like Bo Nix. I think it depended on where they land. I thought whoever landed in Minnesota was going to work. If it was going to be Drake May, Bo Nix, or McCarthy.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a lot to figure out. It'll be interesting to see when the season officially kicks off on September 6th. AFC Championship rematch, Baltimore, Kansas City. Andy, I've been telling the people that after WWE SummerSlam takes place on August 3rd, we'll come back on August 6th, do a Tuesday show like I always do. I take a break. We come back in about a month because, again, I don't love talking NFL preseason in August, so I like taking August off. We come back Labor Day that Monday. Predictions are out. Football season's here.
Let's go. I'm
So,
excited.
all right, bud. Well,
We're close, dude. We're close.
we're close.